वचन कारण प्रीता मुतोए माती लकन ता लतीफ जे आरानी आंदी पुनु जे पेरा देवो मुन माणी नसीब ते मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या एता के हो त लंघ्या पल्लवी दे कई के ॾिठा मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या मासवा ढोडा मेरो वन के अल्लाह मासवा ढोडा मेरो वन के मासवा ढोडा मेरो वन के अल्लाह मासवा ढोडा मेरो वन के जिगर वठो ॼम तेरा अल्लाह जिगर वठो ॼम तेरा खाए मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या एता के हो त लंघ्या अल्लाह वी दे आई के ॾिठा मुझा साथीड़े सेड़न माणिया जा एता के हो त लंघ्या वलड़न जिया वरी वया अल्लाह वलड़न जिया वरी वया वलड़न जिया वरी वया अल्लाह वलड़न जिया वरी वया तू दर मुया मथा घेरा अल्लाह को दर मुया मथा घेरा मुझा साथ
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Sat
Sat
Shri
Shri
Akal.
Akal.
Bhali
Bhali
Karya.
Karya.
Thank you
Thank you
very much
very
for
much for
joining us
joining us
today.
today.
At
At your
platform
platform
is
is
thanks
thanks
to
to
rich
Rich
media
Media
and the
and the
film
film
Still
Still
Standing.
Standing.
Eh,
The
film,
film,
it's
it's
2 years of
2 years of
research,
research,
filming
filming
7 countries,
7 countries,
and
and
with
with
128
128
characters,
characters,
following
following
Sindhis
Sindhis
across the
across
globe,
the globe,
from the region
from the
of
region
Sindh
of
and
Sindh
beyond the
and
region of
beyond the
Sindh
region of
today.
Sindh today.
Let's
Let's
together see the
together see
trailer
the
of this
trailer of
film
this
and
film,
then take it
then
forward.
take it home.
Thank
Thank
Who is a Sindhi? Who is a Sindhi? This is a question I ask myself. In my dreams, the answer is always anyone who wants to be.
Mohenjo-daro is the largest Bronze Age urban
settlement in the world.
Anyone who loves Sindh and understands the principle that nothing will divide us. Not even religion.
इहो सॼो मुंहिंजी
इहो
नज़र
सॼो
में
मुंहिंजी नज़र में
जेको बि सफ़र
जेको बि
आहे असां
सफ़र
रूह
आहे
जो
असां
सफ़र
रूह
कयो
जो
आहे
सफ़र कयो आहे
It's a place that I've seen only in my dreams, and I would love to touch the soil of the Sindh.
The attacker appeared to have targeted the women's wing of the shrine and around
The Hindu is as much my brother, the Sikh is as much my brother as the Muslim, because we are children of the same land, of the same river, of the same earth.
If you want to know who you are, you have to go back to the history of your ancestors.
Thank you for joining us again. Adiji Mehfil, Adiji Gupshup is all about Sindhi language and the power of Sindhi language and the expression it possesses. Munjo nalo Ajay Pinjani, and I'm very happy to be a host for everyone today. We have a wonderful guest today joining us who come from Pakistan as well as India and Dubai, and I would love to introduce them. Dr. Ghazala Rahman, she's an educationist, a social reformer in Karachi, a director of Sindh Abhyas Academy at Zabist University. Her students take go into the field, try to understand Sindh studies in detail, in depth, as a policy maker's perspective, from a local person's perspective, and we are very, very happy to have her insights today. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ghazala. Our second guest is Miss Asha Chand. Uh, she has been from a very literary background, very literary family. She has done music, dance, drama, born in Bombay, raised in Bombay, lives in Dubai and in Bombay both. And the family has had a lifelong passion to save and understand the Sindhi language. And as in, like she says, if historical buildings deserve to be saved, a culture, a language which has enormous culture and heritage must be saved passionately. Thank you very much for joining us, Sasha. Our third guest is a young one named Dirven from Ulasnagar, India. He has carries a lot of humor with himself and a lot of charm. Today, across 180 countries, his YouTube channel, Sindhionism, is quite known. And he came with a firm belief that Sindhi cool आहे, सिंधी ॿोली cool आहे. So let's see कि सिंधी ॿोली में अगर असां मज़ाक कयूं, सिंधी ॿोली में असां ॻाल्हायूं, करियाने जे बारे में ॻाल्हायूं, दुकान जे बारे में ॻाल्हायूं, पंहिंजे मोहल्ले जे बारे में ॻाल्हायूं, त ॿार शायद सिंधी ॿोली ॻाल्हाइण शुरू कयनि. So very happy to have you, Dirven. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So let's begin. Dr. Ghazala, तहां सां पहिरियों सवाल हूंदो कि सिंधी केरु आहे? What does it really mean to be a Sindhi?
Can you hear me? Yes. What does it mean? It means different things to different people. I can only say what it means to me. It's a deep sense of belonging to the land. It's the music, it's the poetry, it's this feeling inside of, it's a feeling of love. I feel, I immediately feel at home when I hear the language, when I hear the music, when I meet the people. But I don't know, it's so many things, it's too complex, Ajay, to capture in a few sentences. Very pucho, very socha.
Thank you. Asha ji, तहां सिंध जेको जोग्राफिकल रीजन आहे हुन में वधीक टाइम रहिया न आहियो, त what does it really mean to be a Sindhi? छो एतिरा पैशनेट? छो?
थो लॻे त नंढपण खां वठी असांजे घर में अहिड़ो माहौल हूंदो हो, सभु कुझु अहिड़ो हूंदो हो, सॼो वक़्तु सिंधी 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 हलंदी हुई. असांजे घर में जेकॾहिं केरु माण्हू ॿियो धारियो सिंधी हूंदे जे हू हिंदीअ में ॻाल्हाईंदो हो त मुंहिंजो पीउ एजे उत्तम उतां ई रड़ कंदो हुअसि, अरे भयो आहे छा, सिंधी नथो ॻाल्हाईं. तो असां त अहिड़ो ई एटमॉस्फेयर ॾिठो आहे घर में. ऐं इहो ज़रूरी नाहे त असीं सिंध में रहूं ऐं तॾहिं फील कयूं त असीं सिंधी आहियूं. न, असांजी जेको इतिहास आहे, असांजी तारीख़ आहे, असां जेको हेतिरो सभु कुझु ॿुधो आहे पंहिंजे ॿोलीअ जे हवाले सां, शाह साहब ऐं ॿिया जेके शाइर चाहे लिटरेचर असां पढ़ियो आहे, ॾिठो आहे, ॿुधो आहे, उहो असांखे सिंधी महसूसु कराए थो. ऐं असांजी सुञाणप असांजी ॿोलीअ सां आहे, असीं उहा ॿोली ॻाल्हायूं था, इन लाइ असीं सिंधी आहियूं. ठीकु आहे?
बिल्कुलु. दिरवेन, असां यंगस्टर्स में त जनरली सिंधी ॿोली खे एतिरी अहमियत न ॾिनी वेंदी आहे, न ॻाल्हाईंदा आहियूं, ऐं सॼी एजुकेशन अंग्रेज़ी में आहे, ऐं सिंधी कोई ख़ासि स्कूल लॻंदी न आहे. तव्हांजो छा ख़्यालु आहे? छो सिंधी ऐं छो सिंधिज़म तव्हां चैनल शुरू कयो?
गॾु थिया असां हिनखे कूल कराए छॾींदासीं, उन बिना त असां मुड़ंदासीं न कोई बि. बट आई कैन डेफिनेटली से फ्यूचर असांजो काफ़ी ब्राइट आहे.
दिरवेन, तव्हां कुझु चओ था? Okay, let's
नेटवर्क जो इशू पियो लॻे थोरो.
बिल्कुलु, इट्स ओके. गज़ाला जी, तव्हां वटि था हलूं. जी जी गज़ाला जी, तव्हां कुझु चओ था? तव्हांजो म्यूट ते आहे शायद.
No.
जी.
It's more than just the language. Only na bahuje. Adi Asha sa thoro difference kandasta. उहे बि सिंधी ॾिठा आहिनि सिंध में, कराची में, सॼी सिंध में, जंहिं ॿोली सां एॾो कनेक्शन न हूंदो आहे. हुननि जी ॿोली बि ॿी का हूंदी आहे, पर हुननि जी मोहबत सिंध जे लाइ स्ट्रॉन्ग आहे. इहा ॻाल्हि सम्झण जे लाइ असांखे वरी क्वेश्चन ओपन करणो आहे त सिंध में का ॻाल्हि आहे जेका असांखे छिके थी, ऐं नॉन सिंधी न चवणु खपे, पर जेके पाण खे सिंधी न बि चवंदा आहिनि उहे बि चवंदा आहिनि असांखे ही धरती ॾाढी छिके थी, असांखे वणे थी, असांखे असांजी दिलि चवे थी त असीं निकिरूं, उते झंग में वञूं, थर में वञूं. सो हिकिड़े क़िस्म जो बॉन्ड थी वेंदो आहे जॾहिं तव्हां हिते रहंदा आहियो. इन धरती में there is something in this land that is magnetic for a lot of people who don't identify as Sindhi. So that's the connection.
Asha ji?
हा जी, मां हिकु ॻाल्हि चवंदसि त जेके माण्हू उते कान ॼावा आहिनि उन्हनि खे उन धरतीअ सां कहिड़ो लगाव थी सघे थो, उहो तव्हां सोचो ज़रा. जिन माण्हुनि कॾहिं सिंध ॾिठी नाहे, जेके हाणे बि मस पैदा थींदा हुजनि, त उन्हनि लाइ सिंध त ईअं ई आहे जीअं न्यूयॉर्क आहे या ॿियो को शहर आहे. इहे सभु परियां परियां जा मुल्क देश थींदा. सिंध लाइ हुननि खे चाह कहिड़ी रीति पैदा थींदो, फ़क़ति हिन जे करे छाकाणि जो हू सिंधी ॿोली ॻाल्हाइनि था. हू सिंधी छाकाणि जो हुननि जी सुञाणप जेका आहे, मे बी हुननि जी आइडेंटिटी या जेको बि चओ या हुननि जे जेके सरनेम्स आहिनि, इन जे करे हू सिंधी करे सुञाता वञनि था. तंहिंजे करे हुननि खे सिंधियत सां, सिंधी ॿोलीअ सां मोहबत हुजण जे करे सिंध सां नातो जुड़े या जोड़ण के चाहिनि था, पर किन खे त बिल्कुलु ई के काफ़ी इंडिफरेंट आहिनि इन हवाले सां. सो धरतीअ जो रहण, उते रहण ज़रूरी नाहे. अहिड़े नमूने में जीअं तव्हीं सोचो था त ॿोली बराबरि न अचे, ॿी का ॿोली ॻाल्हाइजे, तॾहिं मोहबत उन देश सां, उन धरती सां थी सघे थी. इहा ॻाल्हि मञण लाइ मां तयारु आहियां, पर इहो साॻियो जज़्बो तव्हांखे हिंदुस्तान में कान मिलंदो ऐं एक्सपेक्ट करण बि न खपे.
पर सिंधी अदी आशा सिंधी हिते सिंध में बि ऐं सिंध जे ॿाहिरि बि, बॉम्बे में मूं बि ॾिठो आहे त एतिरा उन्हनि जा कॉन्टेक्ट्स क्लोज़ न बि हुजनि, फीलिंग आहे. पर जिन जे घर में बि सिंधी आहे, जीअं इंडिया में, उहे ॿार फील नथा कनि. उहे चवंदा आहिनि त वी हैव नथिंग टू डू विद दिस, वी डोंट फील द कनेक्शन. सो रिवर्स बि थी सघे थो. It's very individual. The concept.
Yes, I agree.
कुछ families में
I agree that.
हाँ जी, त इंडिया हुजे, दुबई हुजे,
जनरलाइज नथा करे सघूं.
हाँ नथा करे सघूं.
सो गज़ाला जी, मां चाहींदुमि कि तव्हां थोरो सो असांजे लाइ, ऑडियंस जे लाइ, सभिनी जे लाइ थोरो हिस्ट्री में अगरि डाइव इन कयो कि सिंधी ॿोली जी हिस्ट्री रही छा आहे, एंड देन विल टेक इट टू आशा जी के इंडिया में बट हाणे जी सिंधी ॿोली जी हिस्ट्री छा रही आहे ऐं हुन जो करंट स्टेटस छा आहे.
थोड़ी कॉन्ट्रोवर्शियल आहे हिन जी हिस्ट्री जे बारे में. स्कॉलर्स डिसएग्री कंदा आहिनि. के चवंदा आहिनि त सिंधी एॾी पुराणी ॿोली आहे, अवाइली आहे, एंशंट आहे, ओरिजिनल ॿोली आहे सब कॉन्टिनेंट में. ऐं बल्कि चवंदा आहिनि त संस्कृत खां बि पुराणी आहे. ऐं के चवंदा आहिनि त सिंधी ऐं संस्कृत भेनरूं आहिनि, सिस्टर लैंग्वेजेस. डिसएग्रीमेंट अजय अचे थी जॾहिं जीअं त मेजर स्कॉलर्स हाणे जेके अलाना साहब असांजा गुज़ारे विया, बिलवेड अलाना साहब, एंड सिराज मेमन एंड अदर्स, हू डिसएग्री कंदा आहिनि त उनजी धीउ सिंधी आहे संस्कृत जी, या संस्कृत मां आहे या सिंधी मां आहे. What came first? So then Apabhramsha is another language that is, of the time of Sanskrit. So the controversy is very strong. Somebody said, okay, they want us to stick more to English. So I think it doesn't matter. Oldest forms of Sindhi, if you look at what we found in Mohenjo-daro, the hieroglyphics, they have not been deciphered to the satisfaction of most scholars. Some people assume that, like Atta Mohammad Bhamro, who passed away recently, he has claimed certain connections with modern Sindhi and ancient Sindhi. So we really don't know exactly how old Sindhi is, but the probability that it is extremely ancient and has its roots in Mohenjo-daro, good chance. Now you just fast forward to 1947. Between 1947 and now, I think in present day Sindh, we've lost or are in the process of losing a lot of sounds. And when I hear the Sindhi spoken in India, I find, for me, it's almost emerging as a different dialect. The literary people like Asha ji and our literary people here, they speak a similar Sindhi because they read it and they understand it. But the youth in Sindh, Pakistan, and the youth in Sindh, India, they're beginning to sound very different to me. They're dropping certain sounds, but then right here within Sindh, there is a very great scholar whose name I'm forgetting, Bugyo. Dr. Bugyo did a bit of research in Hala, and he compared the sounds of people in Hala and people in Hyderabad, the more commercial areas. You were already losing certain sounds of Sindhi. So the morphology or the outer appearance of the language has changed. It will change over the centuries, but we're beginning to see that it has also changed. We're beginning to acknowledge that it has also changed in the last 70 or so years, which may be because we've lost a very large speech community, which is by the migration of our of Sindhi Hindus away from here, who had a certain, I would say, vocabulary. I don't know. We're still looking into this.
No, thank you. And I think the migration part raises a lot of questions and curiosity also. Asha ji, after the migration and जॾहिं तव्हां हुते हुयव, and as you said, तव्हांजी family में त ॻाल्हायो वेंदो, but हुन जो current status हुयो छा जॾहिं तव्हां सिंधी संगत शुरू कई ऐं छो शुरू कई ऐं हुन जी वजह सां अॼु केतिरो इम्पैक्ट आयो?
हाणे मुंहिंजो जनम त हिते हिंदुस्तान में थियो आहे ऐं मुंहिंजे पेरेंट्स जे करे ऐं माहौल जे करे असीं सिंधीअ सां काफ़ी वेझो न पर तमामु वेझो रहियासीं ऐं ॿोलीअ खे वधाइण जो अॻिते कुझु करण जो जेको ख़्यालु आहे उहो मूंखे पंहिंजे माइटनि वठां मिलियो आहे। मुंहिंजे डैडी एजे उत्तम जॾहिं सिंधी ॿोलीअ खे 8 शेड्यूल में दर्ज कराइण लाइ सरकार जे तरफ़ां सरकार में ऐं पंहिंजे लेखकनि जे तरफ़ां गॾिजी करे जेका कोशिश पे कई उन जे करे असांजे घर में माहौल ई अहिड़ो हो। 1967 में असांजी सिंधी ॿोली भारत जे 8 शेड्यूल में संविधान में शामिल कई वई ऐं उन खां पोइ जॾहिं असीं वॾा थियासीं, मूं सिंधीअ में MA कई ऐं पोइ जॾहिं मम्मीअ जा किताब आखाणियूं मूं MA में पढ़ियूं, साहित्य सां मां जुड़ियसि, त काफ़ी वक़्त खां पोइ जॾहिं मुंहिंजी शादी थी चुकी हुई, उन खां पोइ असीं जॾहिं दुबई वियासीं तॾहिं उते असांखे ईअं लॻो त असांखे कुझु ॿियो प्रोग्राम वग़ैरह करणु खपे जंहिंमें असीं माण्हुनि खे सिंधियत सां जोड़ियूं। उते काफ़ी वक़्त खां ड्रामा वग़ैरह कान थियो हो त असां साल 2000 में उते सिंधी प्रोग्राम करणु शुरू कयो। कल्चरल एवरी ईयर असीं हिकिड़ो प्रोग्राम कंदा आहियूं ऐं 21 सालनि खां वठी असां हर साल हिकु आर्टिस्ट सिंध मां हिकु हिंदुस्तान इंडिया मां घुराईंदा आहियूं। उन खां सवाइ केतिरा ई ॿार उते जा यंगस्टर्स डांस वग़ैरह कंदा आहिनि। असांजो मेन पर्पस मेन कमु इहो थियो जो लेखकनि सां जुड़ण जे करे, डॉक्टर मोती प्रकाश सां जुड़ण जे करे असां ईअं सोचियोसीं त असीं उते जे नौजवान टहीअ खे घटि में घटि इहो ॾेखारियूं त असांजो सिंधी कल्चर केतिरो न रिच आहे, आगाटो आहे ऐं उन में केतिरियूं न सुठियूं शयूं आहिनि। तव्हां मूंखे ॿुधी सघो था? मूंखे ईअं थो लॻे शायदि मुंहिंजो स्क्रीन फ्रीज़ थी वई आहे छा?
न बिल्कुलु ॿुधी सघां थो।
ओके, ठीकु आहे। त मुंहिंजे चवण जो मतिलबु छा आहे त असां तॾहिं गॾिजी करे सिंधी संगत जो पायो विधोसीं ऐं उन में असां ॾाढियूं घणियूं शयूं करणु शुरू कयूं। न फ़क़ति असां प्रोग्राम कंदा हुआसीं दुबईअ में, पर असां ऑडियो जा ऑडियो बुक्स ठाहिणु शुरू कयासीं जंहिंमें शेख हयास जी शाइरी, नारायण शाम जी शाइरी जेका मोती प्रकाश साहिब जे आवाज़ में असां कैसेट जे रूप में आंदी, पोइ CD जे रूप में आंदीसीं। उन खां सवाइ ऑडियो बुक्स में केतिरियूं आखाणियूं असांजूं जेके माए नाज़ असांजा लेखक आहिनि उन्हनि जूं कहाणियूं असां ऑडियो जे रूप में आंदियूं। असां उन ई वक़्तु पंहिंजो वेबसाइट बि शुरू कयोसीं, यूट्यूब चैनल बि शुरू कयोसीं। हीअ ॻाल्हि त साल 2000 खां वठी असां जेका शुरू कई आहे उन में असां पंहिंजे ॿोलीअ जे वाधारे लाइ हर जेका बि शाख असांखे लॻी जेको बि तरीक़ो असांखे लॻो उहो असां शुरू कयोसीं हुते ऐं ईअं कंदे कंदे जॾहिं साल 2007 अची थियो तॾहिं असां पंहिंजो टेलीविज़न ते पंहिंजो प्रोग्राम ॾेखारणु शुरू कयो छाकाणि जो असांखे लॻो हीअं नंढा प्रोग्राम करे दुबईअ में स्टेज ते असांखे अहिड़ो कुझु करणु खपे जो दुनिया में घटि 10,000 माण्हू त सिंधी प्रोग्राम ॾिसनि ऐं ईअं ई असां सिंधी प्रोग्रामनि जी शुरू कई ऐं ईअं ई बसि गाॾी असांजी हलंदी हली तव्हांजो असीं हाणे जॾहिं कुझु साल अॻु में 2016 खां वठी असां नंढनि ॿारनि में वधीक दिलचस्पी वरितीसीं छाकाणि जो हिते ॿार सिंधी ॻाल्हाइनि नथा माइट बि सिंधी ॻाल्हाइनि नथा उन्हनि खे को ख़ासि चाह कोन्हे या शायदि उन्हनि खे सिंधी ॻाल्हाइण जे में शर्म थो अचे जीअं जीअं सभु चवनि था पर असांखे ईअं लॻो त असांखे नंढनि ॿारनि जे मथां महिनत करणु खपे जीअं हू सिंधी ॻाल्हाइणु सिखनि लिखण पढ़ण जी ॻाल्हि पोइ थींदी ऐं इन जे लाइ असां नंढनि ॿारनि जी कॉम्पिटिशन शुरू कयोसीं जंहिंमें असीं कंप्यूटर टैबलेट्स इनाम ॾियूं था ॿार बैत यादि कनि था उहे वरी वीडियोस मोकिलीनि था जेके असीं यूट्यूब ते विझूं था त अहिड़े क़िस्म जी जेका एक्टिविटी आहे न उनजी असांजे हिते हिन पासे सरहद जे हिन पासे यानी सिंध खां ॿाहिरि हिंदुस्तान में सख़्तु ज़रूरत आहे त ॿार सिंधी ॻाल्हाइनि लिखण पढ़ण पढ़िया थींदो पर इहा त वॾी सुठी ॻाल्हि आहे जो सरकार हाणे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इहो तय कयो आहे एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में त पहिरियां 5 साल हर ॿार खे पंहिंजी मातृभाषा पंहिंजी मादरी ज़ुबान में एजुकेशन ॾिनी वञे ऐं इहा सचमुच असांजे सिंधी ॿोलीअ लाइ ॾाढी सुठी ॻाल्हि थींदी जो असांजा ॿार पहिरें दर्जे खां वठी सिंधी लिपि पढ़ंदा हिते 2 लिपियुनि जो वाहिपो आहे सिंधी लिपि ऐं देवनागरी पर नंढो ॿार जॾहिं पहिरें दर्जे में हूंदो तॾहिं उहो देवनागरी पढ़ी नथो सघे छाकाणि हुनखे त हिंदी ईंदी कान तंहिंजे करे हर को ॿार सिंधी लिपि पढ़ंदो ऐं असांजो साहित्य सिंधीअ में पढ़ी सघंदो अहिड़ी क़िस्म जी कोशिशूं सिंधी संगत तरफ़ां असीं करे रहिया आहियूं ऐं जेके कोशिशूं सचमुच त सिंधी समाज में हर बंदे खे हर माण्हूअ खे करणु खपनि पर इहो जेको ॿोलीअ ॾांहुं जवाबदारीअ जो अहसासु आहे उहो हर माण्हूअ खे कीअं थींदो शायदि ज़मीन हूंदी तॾहिं थींदो मूंखे ख़बर कान्हे तव्हांजो सिंध में कहिड़ो हाल आहे ॿोलीअ जे हवाले सां असां वटि त हिते जीअं ग़ज़ाला भेण कल्ह चए पई त असां वटि त जय हिंद कॉलेज आहे केसी कॉलेज आहे HR कॉलेज आहे जिते सिंधी घटि में घटि सब्जेक्ट करे पढ़ियो वञे थो तव्हां वटि त अहिड़े क़िस्म जी का ॻाल्हि ई कान्हे अफ़सोस आहे हिन ॻाल्हि ते पर ख़बर कान्हे त धरती हुजण सां असीं पंहिंजी ॿोलीअ खे केतिरो वधीक वधाए सघंदासीं अहिड़ो विश्वास हिंदुस्तान जे हर माण्हूअ खे आहे हर माण्हू चाहे थो त असांखे पंहिंजी ज़मीन धरती स्टेट हुजे ई हुजे मां शायदि वधीक ॻाल्हाए वियसि न
No, no, Asha ji, bilkul na. I think tahan adi khubsurti sa samjhayo hai and it's very important. But because our audience is diverse and there are many people who are
I know.
non-Sindhi also, and I don't want them to miss what you've said. I cannot repeat exactly what you've
Okay,
said.
then I can
Complete
speak little
injustice.
in English as well.
No, I
Okay.
think we'll continue the question. What
Thank
I hear from you is beautiful that there is a conscious effort which has been done to create a public space for Sindhi language, and that's in different
Yes.
forms. And as you've raised the point, I think Ghazala ji, and then I'll come to Dirven. But Ghazala ji, the point was raised about Pakistan and the land of Sindh. What is happening? What is the current status of Sindhi over here? And in terms of education or otherwise, if you could give a snapshot of that.
I will not talk about the recent discussion with the federal government that you, Ajay, are aware of. And TCF has really is in a frontline position. Maybe you can explain that later to everyone. But I think we don't have the acceptance for Sindhi as an academic language in Sindh. In the schools, in the rural areas, yes, it's there, but in the urban areas, and even in the rural areas, there is far more emphasis on English. Even now, we equate being educated with English. Agar manu ॿार पढ़ियल लिखियल आहे त हुन वटि अंग्रेज़ी हुजणु ज़रूरी आहे या उर्दू बि सिंधी खे we look at Sindhi this will really hurt Asha I know we look at it as a backward language frankly whereas before partition even geometry was taught in Sindhi Ibrahim Joyo told me how he had his level of geometry and math, other subjects, science subjects, they were available to him in Sindhi. Today, this is not the case. We do not have teachers trained in Sindhi to give children knowledge of any kind of knowledge in Sindhi. Yes, they explain to the children when they don't understand. Excuse me one moment. Abby is disturbing me. In Karachi, you will not find a single institution that is teaching Sindhi the way it ought to be taught. Certainly not higher, excuse me, certainly not a higher education institution. In the schools where it's taught at a compulsory level, it is taught as we always say, a soteli ma treatment, stepmotherly treatment to the language. Even the Sindhi language teachers who are trained in Sindhi language, if you interview them, and I interviewed dozens of them for my own research, the attitude is not healthy. Now, for me, this is not a political issue, Ajay, Asha Ji and Dirven. This is not political at all. This has to do with the cognizance of the child. A Sindhi child already has a vocabulary at home. He already has his language, his culture, his sensibilities in Sindhi. And he comes to school and he's told in 100 ways that what his grandmothers have given him is not good enough for an academic program. He's told that very subtly. So a Sindhi child's sense of self, his confidence, his self-esteem is threatened. I think you cannot be a good learner if you have a negative attitude towards your own language and culture. I see this repeatedly. Now, in the rest of Sindh, yes, I mean, outside Karachi, but even there is this, I don't know, there is this atmosphere around the Sindhi language in Sindh that it is just not a language for the public spaces. We have it as a scholarly language. Our scholars have done a very good job producing a lot of literature. We have conferences before Corona. I mean, almost every day there is an event to do with the Sindhi language, literature, culture, performances. But that is in the realm of the literati, the scholars, the cream of our people. It's not an everyday performance. In the Arts Council in Karachi, it's been a few years now, we've managed to secure a space for Sindhi that was not there for many, many years. And so you have these pockets of people in Karachi, Hyderabad, Sakhar, Ruri, Shikarpur, Larkana, the Sindhi Adabi Sangat, they do a lot, but it's not cool as yet to the extent that Dirven would like or understand what I would like to see. Sindhis hesitate to speak Sindhi in the public space. What we say is when there are, two Sindhis speaking and a third person arrives who's not Sindhi speaking, they will immediately revert to that person's language instead of expecting that third person to try to speak their language. There is a kind of a shyness an embarrassment. When I started the Sindhi language program or the Sindh Abhyas Academy and the Sindh Studies program at Zabist 9 years ago, a large number of faculty and staff told me, who were Sindhi, that we don't speak Sindhi here in public. It's not accepted. It's just not done. And after the Sindh Abhyas Academy opened, more people were willing to come and share the sorrow of the loss of the language. We created a platform, we created a public space, we invited scholars to speak. Students came out of their shell and they said, Ma'am, ma Sindhi aya. मूंखे ॾाढो सुठो थो लॻे त तव्हां सिंधी पढ़ायो पिया असीं सिंधी नथा पढ़ायूं we have classes in Sindhi but we teach Sindh studies where we inculcate a lot of respect for Sindhi geography, history, culture, anthropology, everything. Archaeology, we have Italian archaeologists come and talk about the archaeology of Sindh. So we approach it in many ways. But I'm sad to say that there is a hesitancy, even at the Sindh University, in certain classrooms, in many departments, to appear academic, to appear intellectual, you have to use English.
Ghazala ji, thank you for sharing that, because this is what I see is there is this scholarly space, and I agree, I echo. I've been in education for 7 years now, and so there is this basic concept of familiar language ke baar jilaye agar early years mein, if the child does not understand that language, wo ghar aur school ke beech mein there is no bridge, and that bridge can never happen if that familiarity is not taken from home to school. But I think what your point was, and where I want to bring Dirven in and ask, when did you feel, Dirven, that Sindhi is not cool? And tell me more about it.
Hi Ajay, first of all, I'm very sorry for the loss of network that I faced. And can you hear me now? First of all, congratulations for the live event that we are doing as of now, and a lot of Sindhis and non-Sindhis are watching. And it's a proud thing because non-Sindhis are watching Sindhis talking about Sindhi language. But that's what we all wanted, and this is happening. And congratulations, Mirko, you got us all together. And I just got goosebumps by looking at the trailer. And now coming to your question, I think I never felt that Sindhi is uncool because I was born and brought up in an area where everybody is Sindhi, everybody speaks Sindhi, and it was a proud thing. In fact, whenever we tried to speak English, people used to laugh at us because he's becoming Angrez. That's that's what the atmosphere was. We never felt uncool, but then I heard there are a lot of people who feel that language is uncool. When I digged deeper into it, I found out that there are not much interesting things to watch as a content in Sindhi language. We do not have glamorized idols whom we can follow. I think that lacked, and the idea of Sindhionism came in, where I wanted to create content which is as good as what other languages are creating. For example, Hindi and English. So I chose this concept of vines and videos, and when that happened, everybody started connecting it. Everybody felt it's fun to learn Sindhi, and it's equally important. It's equally fun it's equally fun as other languages like Hindi and English. People started taking interest, which is first thing, because interest is very important today on a platforms like Facebook, Instagram, where millions and millions of people are struggling for an interest, where they are spending lots of money on ads, on content, where they are fighting for the attention. This is what is happening when we start creating content in Sindhi language. And I think this is the only goal, this is the only strategy that I have, uh, to bring youth towards the Sindhi language. I think that's the only strategy that I have. That's what I do day in and day out, trying to grab attention with anything possible.
I think you're doing a fantastic job there, because yesterday I started watching and I couldn't stop, one after the other, one after the other, and मां भी घणे टाइम खां पोइ कोई सिंधी जोक ॾिसां पियो वरी वरी, so आशा जी तव्हां सां हे सवाल आहे कि हिकु जगह ते सिंधी ज़मीन आहे, सिंधी ॿोली जी हुते ॾाढी ॼाण बि आहे. There is Sindhi Language Authority, as Ghazala ji said, that there is a lot of conferences, scholarly शयूं आहिनि. ऐं अगर इंडिया में भी ॾिसूं त इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सिंधोलॉजी आहे, वो भी घणो कम थी करे. And then there is people like Dirven was making Sindhi language cool. There is a Sindhi app you're working on. There is so much you're working on in terms of, making Sindhi entertainment come alive. So these borders were earlier, which were physical borders के हितां जी knowledge असां हुते न पिया खणी वञूं. हाणे what stops us? What stops us connecting the dots from the local alphabet which you're introducing, the coolness which Dirven is introducing, the scholarly availability and the academics which Ghazala ma'am is introducing? What stops us from amalgamating it?
And see, in India, predominantly, we all are Hindus here. And that is a religion which stops many. That is one reason. And the second reason is that younger generation who has not seen Sindh, who does not know anything about it, there is no attachment. There is no feeling. And even the parents, the parents have become so old. Either they have died, the grandfather or grandparents. So there is nobody to tell them the stories. So there is nobody. How do you really find interesting topics for small children that attracts them to go to Sindh or look for Sindh? Yes, Sindh आहे, पर उहा ॿियनि वांगुरु ई आहे. इहा ॻाल्हि असां वटि बि आहे त माण्हू सिंधी ॻाल्हाइण में शर्म महसूस कनि था. The way people over there feel and they don't speak in Sindhi. Similarly, sometime back it was too much. People were really not speaking in Sindhi, but now that is dying out. People have started loving Sindhi because you see, there has been efforts have been taken. We are all taking efforts. Like our Sindhi Sangat is taking effort that we should provide such interesting telefilms, programs that people would love to watch. And as you know, we invited Dirven in Dubai to perform because he was very, very, whatever he was creating was very effective. It was very nice. He has started getting a lot of popularity. So, इन जो मतलब छा आहे त असांखे अहिड़ो कुझु करणु खपे जो ॿिन्ही मुल्कनि जे विच में का हिक का ॻाल्हि कॉमन हुजे, हिक का शइ हुजे जेका हिक ॿिए सां असीं वंडे सघूं, हिक ॿिए सां एक्सचेंज करे सघूं. अहिड़ियूं के ॻाल्हियूं कोन्हनि. असांजी ॿोली बि फिरंदी पई वञे. असां जॾहिं ॻाल्हायूं था हिते सिंधी, that because of the dialects, which is more common in Sindh, I find, the word called aum for ma, we don't hear it much in India. We say mu ya ma. Aum chavanda ain ke manu, but it's not so much. So there is a difference in the language, and I tell you the literature in Sindh mein jo literature hai, to it has got a lot of Urdu words. Similarly, in India, that Sindhi literature which is being produced now is being written. There's a lot of Hindi words in it, and really that should be completely stopped. Our Sindhi language is so very rich. Why we can't stick to our Sindhi words? Why we have to bring in those Urdu words or Hindi words when we talk also? The ये ॻाल्हियूं जेके आहिनि हिक ॿिए जे विच में वधीक विछोटी विझनि थियूं. This is what I feel. Offhand, I can say these things.
No, that's fine. So Ghazala ji is. Would you echo what Asha ji is saying, or are there other reasons which you want to point out that bring Nathakian together?
I think the scholars are in touch across the border. There is a shared literature. I think as soon as something is published here, it is sent over there, and they send us stuff here. I think the bridge is there because, well, right now 1 year has been closed, but there have been exchanges, especially with this digital media. There is a lot. People are writing back and forth. And one thing we could do, Adi, Asha, is maybe collaborate on a joint research project into the language. Because as you pointed out, the language is changing, not just because of partition, but also within India, the Sindhi language has gone through changes, and within Pakistan, the Sindhi language has gone through changes. We have, I mean, Asanji jeka Uttarati Boli ahe has still got those sounds. The northern Sindhi, still you can always tell when somebody's from northern Sindh. And then there's Lar, and then the Vicholi Boli, of course, the classical. And then there's the way they talk in Thar with the little bit of the Marwari accent. So we've also got, and I tell this to my students, there are so many Sindhis. There is not one style of speaking Sindhi. It's a very rich language. And depending on the geographical area, Asanji jeka Sahili Boli aahe, Samundi Boli. Again, that's different. You go to the villages along the coast of Sindh, it's a completely different. Thatta has got the most beautiful lilt in it. You can hear the waves. You can hear the sound of the sea in the language of the fishermen, even here in Ibrahim Hedri, the village on the coast. But I think that the loss of vocabulary, the loss of sounds is inevitable. This is happening to all the languages in the world. The Germans and the French and the Italians work very hard to keep their language pure. They have, the German-speaking board of studies or whatever. The spellings, they work on their spellings. By law, you cannot change the spelling a certain way in the script because they organize themselves like that. Maybe we have to have a joint council of what is correct literary Sindhi and how to protect it, because everybody's writing the way they feel on their own. Within Pakistan, in Sindh, there are so many problems in the editing and publishing. There's no standardization. Television is ruining our language even more. The slang is, you can't do anything about slang. It's going to be there. The entry of English into Sindhi, into every language is an issue. But I think we can adapt to these things and work on what is important. There are many scholars, Sindhi scholars, who think that we should get other words into our language and not worry about keeping it, pure. Why is it pure? It's not really pure. There's already so much Arabic and Persian and Sanskrit in Sindhi. Who knows what was the original Sindhi? But if you go to certain villages in Sindh today, I can guarantee you, Ajay, you will not understand a lot of words because the remoteness keeps it pure. There are certain sounds and certain words that you have to ask them, even as a Sindhi, to explain to you. They are Nij Sindhi Chavandan. We've got to preserve that, for instance. Unke sambhalan khape, unje recordings hujan. At one time, the Sindhology was doing this in Jamshoro. And people like, the greatest loss Sindh has suffered recently is Alana Saab. Alana Saab carried all this in his head, in his heart. Alana Saab was a treasure. And I don't know if there are many recordings of him speaking about the differences, but I've been lucky to receive one-on-one lectures from him in his little office. Asha must have been there. So preservation is a problem. Institutes, we need many more places to archive things so that it's all is not lost and forgotten in another 10 years.
So,
sorry, I went on too long.
No, that's completely fine. One is, Asha ji, taha kuch chahna chaho? Please.
I want to say that the same thing is happening in India. In India, Indian Studio of Sindhology had Preetam Varyani, and he, of course, died very recently. But he also had gone to different places, small towns, and he found small folk songs, our Sindhi songs, and he tried to record them, preserve them, bring them over to Sindhology. But afsos, it is not, it has to be really planned, and it is to be saved, and it is to be sent among all us, among all the interested Sindhis. Second thing, what I say, that in Sindhis here, because of the Devanagari script, the youngsters who do not know Sindhi script, they are writing in Devanagari script. But if you don't know the basic Sindhi pronunciations, your own writing is not so good and perfect. And that is why our literature is going to suffer if we don't take care of that one aspect. It's not possible for Sindhis to even standardize Devanagari script, which can make little difference of getting the transliteration of the best Sindhi literature into Devanagari from Sindhi script. These are the problems different which are here, and naturally in Sindh also you have some different problems, but some are definitely common. That script Devanagari is a big problem, very big problem for
So,
India.
so what I'm hearing is there is this one demand or desire ke koi uniformity. There should be some form of uniformity in terms of script, in terms of scholarly agreement. Let's come to the youth. Let's see what matters to the youth. Dirven, tell me, does the uniformity matter to you more, or as a Sindhi who wants to go on with the youth, what have you heard back from the young? What are the comments which have energized you or re-energized you again?
I think if I'll tell you honestly, from all the thousands and hundreds and thousands of comments that I get on my social media, on the videos and the messages that I get, nobody even talks about the language. Because I'll tell you a simple example. Whenever we go to a party or something, we dress up very well, but we never, whenever we go, we never say them, see my watch, see my shirt, see my pants. We never say them. They just notice it. So what I feel is we should keep on doing whatever we want to do in a language. People just notice it subconsciously. We all have a patriotism. Everybody has a patriotism. And some has a at lesser level, some at more level. The ones that have in more, they go to the army. Like all of us, we feel that we're part of an army for saving a language. But rest of the people, they'll not come on a war ground. They'll just enjoy whatever they get. So the efforts that we are expecting from them, they are never going to put. We only have to do whatever we can. They'll just adopt whatever we give to them. So as of now, I feel they are very comfortable. They are very happy that they are getting everything in Sindhi. They are getting the coolness in the language. I think we are at a level. We are just starting it off. The internet has just come. We all have just got more active, more creative. People have started getting content in the Sindhi language. So we should not worry about how they are getting it, like it is mixed with Hindi, Sindhi, Urdu. The thing that matters as of now is they are getting it in Sindhi. Once we cross that level where a lot of people are now involved, we should more focus on the fineness and the clarity of the language. This is what I feel. This is, I think, the youngster feels. They don't even care what we are hearing. This is a pure Sindhi. Is this कितनी उसमें रिफाइन घणी उनमें रिफाइननेस है हे प्योर सिंधी है किथा जी सिंधी उन्हनि खे अञा ताईं नॉलेज ना ही उन्हनि खे अञा ताईं इंटरेस्ट आहे.
So this is very important because hik jagah te, there are these senior people who are talking about the formality and uniformity and their aspirations about it. There is this young lot which says, मूंखे त अञा ताईं कूल ई नथी लॻे, मूंखे त अञा ताईं हुन जो स्टेटस ई सम्झ में नथो अचे, मां हू ॻाल्हायां छो? ऐं अगरि मूंखे कंहिं बि फॉर्म में मिली थी वञे, एंटरटेनमेंट जे कंहिं बि फॉर्म में मिली थी वञे, I will carry it. There is this third aspect also. This third aspect जेको मां ॾिठो जेको आहे फॉर्मल एजुकेशन में. Hane jate Pakistan mein, there are 17 million children who are in schools. We are often talking about 25 million children who are out of school. But there are 17 million children who are in school in the primary years and they're struggling to read and write. In the language which is Sindhi, Pashto, Punjabi, whatever, in the case of Sindh, it's Sindhi. And then there would be English and Urdu. But we are not teaching them in the language which they understand. So हिक जगह ते the coolness है status जी गाला, but हिक जगह ते एक necessity जी गाला. And I want to understand कि India में छा dynamics in या Ghazala जी तहाँ अगर होने थे, if you want to elaborate on this, what is this formal education में, what is the scope of Sindhi and what is the necessity of Sindhi?
I'll speak first to the necessity. So when the mind is being formed, you know, the apparatus with which you learn anything is under construction. When a child is small, the equipment with which you learn about the world around you is the same equipment with which you absorb language. So you're learning a language, you're learning the names of things in your first language. And then when you go to school, it's very important to build on that. You know, it's called scaffolding. You build on what you have. If you forget about the foundation that a child already has, and we know that you actually absorb language even in the womb, you know, पेट में बुधे पियो ॿार ॿोली खे. So the sounds, असीं चवंदा आहियूं सिंधी में नानी ॾाॾी जी ॿोली, हंज जी ॿोली. That is there in the child, the language of the lap, of the grandmothers. It's a very rich language. I'm not passionate about Sindhi just because it's my mother tongue. And it's the language of this land, and because I love it for so many reasons. There's a very strong scientific, academic, educational reason for not depriving a child of his mother tongue in the school, because there's a lot of proof internationally that unajo zehen badhe to, his brain actually develops in the right way when the home language is continued in school. There is proof of this. And a lot of work has been done in different countries. So it's not about, you know, Sindhi, Sindhi, Sindhi for the sake of Sindhi. I think that there is a dumbing down. Asaji Gotan mein, in our villages, I find that too many children are not as bright as they could have been if they were given the facility of education in the right way in their own language, because they struggle a lot. You know, the system, there is a kind of our educators are not confident and clear that this is what we should be doing. Asha ji's picture has turned. I can't see her. Okay. So the thing is that, you know, it's a lot of work that needs to be done. Nothing to do with patriotism. On the one hand, we love Sindhi, Dirven. We want to, it's beautiful, it's so rich. You know so much about your flora and your fauna, the animals, the plants, the music, the literature. There's a world within Sindhi language. You know, just Shalatif alone, Sachal, Sarmas. I mean, you could just go on and on, you know. We tell our students, just a little bit of Shah, Sachal and Sami, and you'll get something wonderful. We just give them a little bit because there's only one semester. But I think that the scientific reason, the academic reason of giving in a very organized, stage-wise fashion, the basic language tools, the first 5 years, you know, the first 5, as they say in many countries, the first 5, the valuable first 5, you must introduce the poetry of the child's home to him. The music, the pop songs, even. There's a great, there's a very sound academic reason for doing this. Not just self-esteem, not just scaffolding here, but they say it actually helps you learn another language easily if you're strong in the base. And actually to inquire, to think, it helps you think. It helps you be a learning person forever. And the greatest example is Ibrahim Joyo. You know, he was the most curious man. He died over 100 years old, he lived. And he was completely trilingual, maybe he had 4 or 5 languages. He spoke Sindhi, Urdu, English, understood Persian quite well. He had a command of all 3 languages, and his early education had been in Sindhi. This is proof, and I see this again and again. People who have mastered Urdu, they've mastered Persian, and they're very good in English. After they never spoke any other language in their first few years. Very, very strong. The Sindhi base makes you absolutely brilliant later on, only because it was your mother tongue.
Asha ji, Tahanji, you've worked a lot on the formalization of the language also. Early years में जेकी literacy आ, जेकी alphabets and जेकी CDs and जेबते भी तहां कम कयो आ, जेकी मिस गजाला जी ॻाल्हि थी कनि कि छा साॻियो चैलेंज इंडिया में बि फेस थींदो आहे कि अर्ली इयर्स में फॉर्मल एजुकेशन में सिंधी जी केतिरी ज़रूरत आहे एज अ मदर टंग?
बिल्कुलु थींदो आहे एंड शुरूआती दौर में त बिल्कुलु सिंधी जेसिताईं ॿार खे ॻाल्हाइण नथा सेखारियूं तेसिताईं लिखण पढ़ण जी ॻाल्हि त करे ई नथा सघूं। ऐं हिते हिंदुस्तान में स्कूलनि में शुरूआती दौर में त बिल्कुलु सिंधी गुम थी वई आहे। उहा रुॻो हिन साल खां ईंदड़ साल खां वठी पहिरें दर्जे खां शायदि पढ़ण में शुरू कई वेंदी, छाकाणि इहा एजुकेशन पॉलिसी हाणे अची रही आहे। See, it is important for children to learn Sindhi right from the childhood, which is not happening for many years now in India. It may start from this year, coming year, because the government of India has taken that decision. However, I feel that whatever we have tried to do to teach Sindhi from the basic small kids level, I'll say, there have been efforts which have been made by the colleges by pressurizing or making it compulsory for Sindhi students to take a Sindhi subject when they, take the admission in the college in the 11th or the first year or something. Then they are compulsory. They have to appear for exam and, take that language so that they can pick up the Sindhi language. However, it is pretty difficult. छाकाणि जेको माण्हू 10 साल अॻु में सिंधी पढ़ियो न आहे, उनखे suddenly, of course, they can read, write in Devanagari script. But suppose you don't know the language properly, how do you really write? It's not easy to write, even in Roman script. If you don't know the language properly, you really cannot write properly. So, असां वटि इहा तकलीफ़ अॼु बि आहे। अॼु बि ॿारनि खे केतिरा स्कूल आहिनि आंगणनि ते ॻणण जेतिरा। There are very few schools who are still teaching Sindhi from standard 1. Like I can say that it has recently started by a couple of schools because we have been requesting them, insisting upon, or you can say that we are making them realize that if you will not do it, Sindhi managed schools will not do this work, then who will do it? Who is going to take care of the language then? So that is why, there are some schools wherever I have visited, I have found that all the Sindhi managed schools, the trustees, principals, everybody is quite positively taking interest and they want to teach Sindhi to the children right from the standard 1, but they are finding a lot of resistance from their parents. Parents are saying, okay, we don't know how to read, write Sindhi. How will we teach? अरे ॿारनि खे सेखारणो आहे त तव्हां ॿारनि सां गॾु सिखो न। ॿारनि सां गॾु सिखंदा तॾहिं ताईं थोरो घटि में घटि सिखी वठंदा। Now, you see, we find it very difficult to impress upon those youngsters, 17, 18 years old youngsters, students who are going to college. They say we don't have time to learn Sindhi at all. So now I have proposed a new idea which came to our mind that, those there is something called Sindhi quota in Bombay, in which these colleges which are managed by Sindhis, there are quite a few and they are in great demand, and they are considered to be the excellent colleges where the education has been imparted. So, these colleges are giving some benefits to the students who are Sindhis. Even if you don't have enough of cutoff percentage of marks, you are still given the admission because you are Sindhi. So I have suggested that the colleges should make it compulsory for all the students who are looking for the admission under Sindhi quota. They should be interviewed in Sindhi language. They should speak in Sindhi. So this will bring a lot of pressure on their parents, because parents are equally interested that children should get admission in the best colleges. And best colleges, if they are demanding that you should speak in Sindhi and give interview in Sindhi, what they will do? They will definitely talk to their children in Sindhi, and that can give a lot of boost in couple of years. I have been talking to the Shahani Group's Madam Maya Shahani. She is very much happy about it and interested. I did speak to Mr. Hiranandani ji and also Madam Neha. So these things, what will catch up immediately, and Sindhis will start at least speaking in Sindhi. We have to think about new ideas which can pressurize, which can motivate, which can infuse some interest among younger generation also to speak in Sindhi, learn Sindhi, because Sindhi is our mother tongue. That is good enough reason to know our mother tongue. For that, we don't need any other reason, I guess. But we have to have some good leaders. Of course, we have got many good people around who are preaching, but somebody has to really come out, and somebody has to really do something extraordinary effort, which can motivate all the people. And I look for such a person.
Asha ji, I
That
often get very speechless after your conversation, and rightly so. I'm sure बहुत सारे, like many more people, get speechless. There is this one last question before we move to the questions from the audience, because this conversation can go on. I would love to carry it forward, but Dirven, there are parents, and now the parents are not, 60-year-old parents. Now there are younger parents, जिन्हें पार सिंधी न पढ़िया, and and they go with the product dimension. के, what will my kid achieve if I don't? It's secondary. What will my kid achieve? Why should I invest time? कि माँ हुननि सां सिंधी ॻाल्हायां बि ऐं वो सिंधी सिखनि बि, फॉर्मली त परे जी ॻाल्हि आहे. छा तव्हांजो प्रोग्राम पेरेंट्स बि ॾिसंदा आहिनि ऐं छा हुननि कॾहिं कमेंट्स कया आहिनि? व्हाट हैज योर एक्सपीरियंस बीन?
आई थिंक यूट्यूब जा जेके एनालिटिक्स आहिनि उहो मां कॾहिं कॾहिं स्टडी कंदो आहियां, त हुन में मूंखे ख़बर पई आहे कि 16 साल जे जेके ॿार आहिनि हुननि खां वधीक हुननि जा पेरेंट्स वधीक ॾिसंदा आहिनि. मूंखे थोरो सो अम्यूज़िंग लॻंदो आहे कि वॾा माण्हू वधीक था इंट्रस्ट खणनि, एंड आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी गुड थिंग एट सम पॉइंट, बिकॉज पहिरियों वॾनि जो इंट्रस्ट ईंदो त इहो ॿारनि खे अॻियां हुन शइ में मोकिलींदा. त मूंखे लॻे थो कि वॾा इंट्रस्ट खणनि था, बुज़ुर्ग बि इंट्रस्ट खणनि था. मतिलबु छा हूंदो आहे न कि मां जंहिं महिल स्क्रिप्ट लिखंदो आहियां पंहिंजी काई बि वीडियो जी, त मुंहिंजे माइंड में हिकिड़ी शइ हूंदी आहे कि हर हिकिड़ो एज ग्रुप हुनखे रिलेट करे, बिकॉज असांखे एट द सेम टाइम सभिनी खे साइमल्टेनियसली टारगेट करिणो आहे, बिकॉज हिकिड़ो एज ग्रुप ॿिए एज ग्रुप खे डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट कंदो. त हिन करे ई मुंहिंजे वीडियोस में अगरि तव्हां ॾिसंदव त मेजर कॉन्सेप्ट जेके मां खया आहिनि, डैड एंड सन टॉकिंग एंड फाइटिंग अमॉन्ग ईच अदर, वो एज डिफरेंस, त हुन में मां ॿई एज ग्रुप थो कवर कयां, पेरेंट जो बि एज ग्रुप थो कवर कयां, ॿार जो बि एज ग्रुप थो कवर कयां. उहो स्ट्रेटेजिकली हीअं कयो आहे त ॿई एज ग्रुप गॾु अचनि स्क्रीन ते, सॼी फैमिली हिकु महिल ॾिसे, एंड उहो जेकी सेंस ऑफ कंफर्ट अची वेंदो आहे न, जंहिं महिल सॼी फैमिली ॾिसंदी आहे ऐं इंट्रस्ट ईंदो आहे, दे हैव अ गुड टाइम, त उहो वधीक ई एज अ कैटलिस्ट मां चवंदुमि उहो कंदो आहे लैंग्वेज जे तरफ़ प्यार अचण जे. अदरवाइज़ हिकु मूंखे ॻाल्हि ऐड करणी हुई कि आई थिंक मां थोरी सी स्टडी कयां पियो, त जंहिंमें ख़बर पई आई थिंक 50 मिलियन पीपल इन पाकिस्तान स्पीक सिंधी. उहो हाणे केतिरी फ्लुएंट कंदा आहिनि मूंखे ओतिरी आइडिया न आहे, बट इट्स अ बिग नंबर. 50 million is a big number, people speaking Sindhi. Whereas in India, it's I think around 5 million people who are Sindhis, but I think 1 or 2 million people speak proper Sindhi. Proper Sindhi speaking areas where Ulasnagar or Chembur or Gujarat, हिन रेशो में सिंधी ॻाल्हाईंदा आहिनि माण्हू, which I feel is a very very good number to not to worry about, because in India, I think 191 languages are the endangered languages. जंहिंमें 40 खां वठी 4000 माण्हू ताईं बचा आहिनि जेके उहो लैंग्वेज खे ॻाल्हाईंदा आहिनि. इट्स अ वेरी बिग डिफरेंस. सॼी एशिया में सॼी वर्ल्ड में बि ॻाल्हाईंदा आहियूं न त 8000 लैंग्वेजिस आहिनि जेकी एक्सटिंक्ट थियण ते अची चुकियूं आहिनि. जंहिंमें 4 माण्हू था ॻाल्हाइनि, 40 माण्हू था ॻाल्हाइनि, 400 माण्हू था ॻाल्हाइनि, 4000 माण्हू था ॻाल्हाइनि, इहो ई रेशो बचो आहे. बाक़ी जेके लैंग्वेजिस मेजर आहिनि उहे पॉपुलर लैंग्वेजिस हिंदी आहिनि, इंग्लिश आहिनि, तमिल आहिनि, जंहिंजी काफ़ी वॾी उहो आहे, स्पीकिंग आहे, माण्हू आहिनि ओतिरा. त ऑब्वियसली जंहिं लैंग्वेज जी जंहिं कम्युनिटी जी पॉपुलेशन घटि आहे त हुन में माण्हू बि घटि थी वेंदा. बट आई विल से इट्स अ वेरी गुड नंबर एज ऑफ नाउ, जंहिंमें मिलियंस ऑफ माण्हू सिंधी ॻाल्हाइनि था. त लैंग्वेज ख़तमु कॾहिं न थींदी. आई एम प्रिटी श्योर लैंग्वेज कॾहिं ख़तमु न थींदी, बिकॉज हेॾा माण्हू आहिनि अञा ताईं ॻाल्हाइण लाइ. एंड आई एम श्योर अञा ताईं हाणे असां सभिनी मिली करे शुरू कयो आहे वधीक एक्टिवली, त अञा चङा साल आहिनि. वी आर स्टिल इन मिलियंस. अञा असां ऐं इहे त तादाद त वधंदी वेंदी. त आई एम श्योर असां कुझु न कुझु सुठो करे वठंदासीं.
Your show is being watched in across 180 countries. That's what I read. So, yeah, that speaks for itself. Yeah. So let's take questions. Let's see what do we have from the audience. Okay. So the first question is: you describe it as such an ancient language holding a crucial role in our history. Why so many people don't know about Sindh history, and Sindhi language? Is it kept away and hidden from everyone, or simply people do not care? Help us understand this, please. Very important question. Who would like to dive in? Ghazala ji?
Could you put the question back up?
Sure. You describe.
So, yeah, I'll try. It holds a crucial role in whose history? I don't know which country you're thinking of. World history, I would say.
Let's say world history given Indus civilization. And
well, people don't know about Sindh and Sindh's history and language. It's because we haven't made enough noise. The Jewish people picked up a dead language and made it a national language. The Hebrew University is one of the strongest university in the Middle East, in the world. It's the commitment of the people. It's a willingness to go out there and do some work. As the Asha said, that is, she went from one principal of a college to another and she pushed it. So, excuse me. We have to think about why more people don't know about this. There's enough books on Sindh in English. Today we know that Mohenjo-daro traded with Egypt and Mesopotamia. There's studies that are showing that it's even older than Mesopotamia, but which is the civilization of Iraq. Why do people not know this in the universities across the world? Why has no one heard of Sindh in many parts of the world? I don't know. It's a pity. It's a shame, because the Sindhi culture and philosophy, if it's understood properly, it can teach the world something very unique, which may be moot for another discussion.
Agreed. I think there are separate discussions demanded for Sindhi Sufi poetry for sure. Asha ji.
No, I just wanted to say, because असीं लड़ायूं नथा करियूं, असीं घमसान माण्हू ॿियनि जी ज़मीन जा नथा फुड़ियूं ऐं लड़ायूं नथा करियूं, तंहिंजे करे असांजो नालो माण्हुनि खे ख़बर कान्हे त ही देश कहिड़ो आहे. ही जेके घणे में घणो विढ़नि था माण्हू, लड़ायूं कनि था, ॿियनि जूं ज़मीनूं खसीनि था, उन्हनि जा नाला वधीक ख़बर आहिनि, उन्हनि जे देश उन्हनि जूं ॻाल्हियूं ख़बर आहिनि. मे बी दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द रीज़न्स.
Let's have another question. Asha ji, it's addressed to you. Could you please say or point out what has to do with Devanagari Sindhi? I really don't understand what is Devanagari Sindhi. Is that some different than Sindhi language?
Okay. let me explain this to you. Basically, you know, there is in India, we have Hindi language. Okay. Hindi is written, whatever script it is called Devanagari. The way English is written, it is called Roman script. Similarly, Hindi is written in Devanagari script. And because in India, there are no schools teaching Sindhi right from the standard one, because we had such situation in India in 1950s, where a group of people took a decision that the language should be changed to, the script should be changed to Devanagari, and everybody should read, write, speak in Devanagari. At that time, you see, the movement was made that even Gujarati should be written in Devanagari, Marathi and all other languages should be written in that script. However, nobody adopted, but Sindhis did, because that was the political situation, our Sindhi among Sindhis. Well, so Sindhi Devanagari script is nothing else like a Roman English you have, something you have in Devanagari Hindi. So you write everything in Hindi script, and Hindi is learned compulsorily in schools in India. Children have to learn English as well as Hindi at two languages. Besides that, they are supposed to learn language of their state. Suppose you're staying in Maharashtra, you should learn Marathi. If you're staying in Gujarat, then you should learn Gujarati. Sindhis don't have any state. So where will you learn Sindhi? That is why we need a state. Anyway, I think I'm going little more than telling you about Devanagari. So that is one thing which is keeping us away from Sindh also, because the literary people, the younger generation who do not know Sindhi script cannot read the literature. Even if you say, Madam is saying, okay, in something on the internet, you see so many books. महाॾिसां सिंधु सलामत ते केतिरा किताब था अचनि सिंधी लिपीअ में, ऐं केतिरा सुहिणा, केतिरा सुठा, केतिरा रियली ॾाढा ॾाढा ज़रूरी किताब आहिनि जेके सभिनी खे पढ़णु खपनि, पर केरु पढ़ी सघंदो? Devanagari is one of the things which we have to solve the problem, which is creating problems because it is not yet formalized. That is the problem.
That is true. Script and its uniformity is a very big concern. Let's have another question. Sindhi folklore is the important area to work on, so we should start working on it. What do you think? That's a question where Dirven, do you have any thoughts on this? Are you starting to make Sindhi folklore your center topic also?
I would love to think about it, but I think one thing that I took from this conversation that we had till now, the Ghazala ji that pointed out, I think first 5 years of a kid, where you should give him pop music and the music. I think that's a very, very impactful suggestion, and I'm definitely working on it, because the kid should have fun at the early ages, and then only he or she is going to adapt it more and more. And pop music is one of the things that might help. Otherwise, for your question, I'm definitely thinking.
To address this question directly for the audience, Ghazala ji, would you like to respond?
The question of folklore.
Folklore, what can we do about it?
You know, Sindhi folklore has been well preserved. There have been many people who worked on the folklore. There are people who've done their PhDs on aspects of folklore. You know, our entire Shahju Risalo is based on folklore. You know, I mean, the legends of the heroines, these are folk stories. And quite a few scholars have done remarkable work on this. I don't think there's a vacuum in this area, but when you teach a child a song, a Sindhi song, or even adults, I mean, I've had classes with adults, people, well into their later years, sitting and doing Juju Mati. I think you're familiar with these children's songs, and we've used the Asha's recordings as well. It's very exciting to use the sound, the movement, and then explain the culture behind it. This is for people who don't know what this song is about, how milk makes you strong. And you'd be surprised. I had a student who was 70 years old, an Urdu speaking lady who just loved this song. So music and poetry can do remarkable things. Our folklore has been preserved in books, in recordings, and today there are radio and TV stations that continually play that music. So I wouldn't be concerned about that, but I am concerned about some folklore that is remote still in far off villages that is not being recorded. We need Sindhi anthropologists. We need people wandering around, recording equipment. We need people living with people in places like in Tharparkar, in other parts of Sindh, in Balochistan. Once we were in the Ranikot area, and there's this tribe, the Gabol people. Among them, I noticed there was the use of certain poetic styles and songs that I had never heard. If I hadn't taken my students there on a field trip, I wouldn't have heard of this. And I'm sure it's not been recorded. So this is why it's important to learn the Sindhi, because there is still a lot of indigenous music, literature, poetry available to be learned and to be learned from, to be analyzed. There's so much. It's like there's this treasure in this whole land, and we're only looking at a little bit of it at a time.
Asha ji. Asha ji, we cannot hear you.
Okay. I think I'm not mute, isn't it?
It's fine now.
Okay. Now it's good.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say that there should be sort of institutions, some sort of government organizations which probably you can afford to have and we can't do. In India, it's not possible. India में असां वटि अहिड़े क़िस्म जूं ॻाल्हियूं आहिनि ई कान. इन्हनि ॻाल्हियुनि ते ध्यानु ॾियणु खपे. इन्हनि ॻाल्हियुनि लाइ जेकॾहिं के असांजा इदारा यानी के संस्थाऊं के खोलियूं वञनि. ॾिसो, फोकलोर ताईं इकठो कयो था, पर जे केरु ॿुधे नथो, कंहिंखे ताईं ॿुधायो नथा, उनजे मथां का सेमिनार्स नथा थियनि ऐं तंहिं के अहिड़ियूं वर्कशॉप्स नथा कयो, त उनखे गॾु करे रखण मां, इहो त कबट में तिजोरी में संभाले रखण मां सचमुच त घणो फ़ाइदो कान थींदो. सो इनखे माण्हुनि जे अॻियां आणण जो कमु करणु खपे. भले खणी केतिरो बि कमु थियो आहे कि जेके नंढा नंढा बैत असीं अॼु चऊं था, ॿुधायूं था, जेको कमु असां सिंधी संगत पारां कयूं पिया, पर उहो बि सफिशिएंट कान्हे. अञा घणो कमु थी सघे थो. उनजे लाइ असांखे सिंधी माण्हू खपनि जेके इन लाइ कमु करण लाइ तयारु थियनि. असांखे उहे माण्हू खपनि जेके इन फोकलोर खे सुञाणनि था, ॼाणनि था, उनजो मज़ो माणीनि था. अॼुकल्ह जे ज़माने जा जेके नवां नौजवान आहिनि, उहे किथां उन्हनि मां उन्हनि खे मज़ो ईंदो जॾहिं उन्हनि नंढे हूंदे कुझु ॿुधो ई कान्हे. त इन जे लाइ ज़रूरी आहे त इहो माण्हुनि खे ॿुधाइजे. भले खणी रेडियो स्टेशन्स केतिरियूं बि हुजनि, पर इहो जेकॾहिं कंहिं सुठे प्रोग्राम में सवले नमूने में टेलीविज़न ते आंदो वञे त कम जी ॻाल्हि थींदी. ऐं अफ़सोस आहे असांखे त असां हिंदुस्तान में हेतिरे वक़्त खां 24 आवर चैनल जी कोशिश करे रहिया आहियूं. दादा राम जेठमलानी असांजे वेटरन साल 2015 में सरकार मथां केस बि कयो आहे, पर अञा ताईं कुझु थियो कान्हे, को ॿूटो बढ़ियो कान्हे. छो? सभु सिंधी शायदि इन जी ज़रूरत ई नथा महसूस कनि. छा चइजे हिन जे लाइ? सो तंहिंजे करे ज़रूरी आहे त के असां जूं संस्थाऊं सरकारी हुजनि या गैर सरकारी, के प्राइवेट माण्हू अॻियां अचनि जेके इन कम जे लाइ पंहिंजो हथ विधाइनि, कुझु इमदाद मदद जेका बि चओ, जीअं बि चओ, कुझु कनि, या त असांजा के सिंधी कॉलेज इन जे इन लाइ कुझु कमु कनि, थी सघे थो, करे सघिजे थो, पर कुझु सोचणु ज़रूरी आहे. Only collecting is not sufficient, which is what this Preetam Varyani sir has done already in Sindhology. But I really want to know how much has really been taken care of. God knows.
Yeah. I remember Abda Parveen ke Budhan ka po. It, there needs this power of expression and not just the poetry. And I have a sincere dream regarding this ke जेकी सब सिंधी सूफी shrines in, या सिंधी ना जेकी भी सूफी shrines in, they should be the center of learning and not just putting a dhaga out there and praying. There's so much poetry out there. In the interest of time, we'll take last question, and then I'll have a question from three of you, and then we'll bid farewell. So it's for Ma'am Asha. What support do you expect from us? I think you've been very clear on this, but the audience wants more.
Actually speaking, if you look for the support is basic thought that, see, it is our responsibility to take care of our language. That is the first thought you have to inculcate in yourself first, and then only you can give it to your children, then only you can impart with it. So first you feel responsible towards doing something for your Sindhi society, Sindhi language, and for that all these things we have spoken, find out what is your interest, in what area lies your interest, then you should contact people who are connected. You can definitely talk to us. We feel असांजे तरफां सिंधी संगत उहा हर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी पंहिंजी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी समझे थो, जंहिंमें का बि ॻाल्हि सिंधियत सां जुड़ियल आहे, उहा चाहे कला सां हुजे, चाहे नृत्य सां हुजे, चाहे संगीत सां हुजे, चाहे ड्रामा सां हुजे, चाहे कंहिं ॿिए नमूने सां असांखे ॿोली बचाइण जे लाइ कुझु करिणो आहे, त सिंधी संगत उन लाइ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी खणण लाइ बिल्कुलु तयारु आहे ऐं उहा खणे थी. असांजा सभु ट्रस्टीज़ हिन ॻाल्हि सां बिल्कुलु शामिल रहिया आहिनि. तव्हां असांखे पुछिजो, असीं तव्हांखे का बि कंहिं बि नमूने जी मदद चाहींदा ज़रूरु कंदासीं.
Thank you. The message is filled with hope and action. So, from Dirven and each one of you, but starting from Dirven, Tahanjo kedo khab aaye, what is your dream regarding the work you do?
I think मुंहिंजे माइंड में थोरो सो क्लैरिटी इहा आहे. आई थिंक हिकु मूवी आई हुई जंहिंजो नालो आहे पैरासाइट. आई डोंट नो केतिरनि माण्हुनि ॾिठी आहे. उहा हिकु चाइनीज़ मूवी हुई, ठही चाइना में हुई, चाइनीज़ माण्हुनि लाइ ठही हुई, बट उहा एतिरी सुठी ठही वई कि सॼी दुनिया हुनखे ॾिठी. दुनिया जी नंढी खां नंढी कुंड में माण्हुनि हुनखे ॾिठो. उहो ख्वाबु हिकिड़ो ई आहे कि सिंधी में अहिड़ो कुझु तव्हां जीअं सॼी दुनिया ॾिसे एंड हिक ई झटके में सॼी दुनिया ते लैंग्वेज पहुची वञे.
Thank you. Ghazala ji.
Sorry, I have an allergy. What's the question?
The dream which you have with Sindh Vyas Academy or otherwise.
The dream shall live and the hope will never die. I think that there's so much work to do. No matter what we do, it'll be beneficial. I just want to see this prejudice removed towards Sindhi. I don't think Sindhi is superior to Urdu, superior to English, or it's the greatest language in the world. I mean, yeah, I think that, but I don't think everybody has to think that way. But I would love to see people not carry this attitude about it being less important than any other language. I think that I want to see more respect for this language. I want to see more public spaces employing this language. I want, to go into a store and if the storekeeper is Sindhi, and I'm definitely Sindhi, and we speak to Sindhi in each other, I don't want the person whose mother tongue is not Sindhi to look at us as if we're something dangerous. Sindhi is a beautiful language, and I think it's time. We Sindhis have learned other people's languages. It's time people learned our language. In Karachi, every Sindhi can speak Urdu, but every Urdu-speaking person will not even attempt to speak Sindhi. We need to be friends, live together in peace, live, love, eat, celebrate, enjoy after the pandemic. Life is a celebration, and it's better to do it in more than one language. It's possible to do it. Our music, each other's music, that any number of Sindhis enjoy Ghalib. Any number of Sindhis enjoy fairs, but there's hardly any Urdu-speaking people who will take the trouble to learn Shas, Sachal, and Sami. Why is that? I want that to melt down, and I want us to reach across and enjoy life together.
Thank you.
Not in
Asha,
our separate little enclaves, Okay.
Asha ji, I'm sure you have many dreams. One dream which is very loud and clear, which you want to give it.
I want each and every child, every Sindhi to know Sindhi, should speak Sindhi, feel proud that he is Sindhi. ऐं भले 4 माण्हू अंग्रेज़ी ॻाल्हाइनि, असांखे सिंधी अचे थी, 2 ॼणा सिंधी गॾियाऊं त सिंधी ॻाल्हायूं, तॾहिं त माण्हुनि खे ख़बर पवंदी त भई सिंधी बि का ॿोली आहे, का माण्हू ॻाल्हाईंदा रहनि, न त माण्हुनि खे ख़बर ई कान्हे त सिंधी बि के थींदा आहिनि ऐं सिंधियुनि छा न कयो आहे। असांखे सिर्फ़ फ़ख़ुरु हुजण ई खपे, जिते जिते विया आहिनि उते असां केतिरो पंहिंजो नालो कढियो आहे। फॉरेन कंट्रीज़ में ॾिसो ऐं असांखे हिते हिंदुस्तान में आहे, हिन विरहाङे खे वक़्तु 70 साल, ॿियो छा 70 सालनि में असां केतिरो पाण खे मोखियो आहे, केॾा न कम कया अथऊं। इन ॻाल्हि ते असांजे नंढे वॾे माण्हूअ खे, ॿार बच्चे खे फ़ख़ुरु हुजणु खपे ऐं इन जे करे या इन मां साबित थींदो जॾहिं हू सभई सिंधीअ में ॻाल्हाईंदा, सभु सिंधीअ में ॻाल्हाइनि ऐं उहे सिखनि। असीं कोशिशि करियूं पिया, असीं लर्न सिंधी ऐप ठाहे चुका आहियूं, हाणे लर्न टू ॿी ऐप पिया ठाहियूं स्पीक सिंधी, घटि में घटि माण्हू कॉन्वर्सेशनल सिंधी बि सिखी वठे। सो वी आर ट्राइंग वेरी हार्ड दैट वी ट्राई टू पंहिंजो ही जेको ड्रीम आहे न, पंहिंजो सुपनो आहे, उनखे साकार करण जी हर मुमकिन कोशिशि पिया करियूं। थी वेंदो, कोशिशि करण वारनि जी हार कान थींदी आहे।
घणी महिरबानी। एंड आई थिंक अखियुनि मां ऐं आवाज़ मां एतिरो होप आहे कि आई एम श्योर इट विल कैरी मच फॉरवर्ड। समथिंग जेको मां सिखां थो ऐं कंटिन्यूसली सिखां थो कि असां हिकु गिफ्ट जे मथां वेठा आहियूं, एंड हू सिर्फ़ु ॿोली जी गिफ्ट न आहे, but it's the entire heritage and Sufi poetry comes with it। एंड हो जेको मैसेज आहे, अगरि हो मैसेज जेको फोक टेल्स जो, पोइट्री जो, अगरि ॿिए ताईं नथो पहुचे बिकॉज़ या पाण ताईं नथो पहुचे बिकॉज़ वो ॿोली असांखे नथी अचे, दैट्स वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट एट द लीस्ट। एंड जेको वर्ल्ड जेको एतिरो डिवाइडेड थी वियो आहे ऐं सूफीज़म या सिंधी ॿोली में जेको बि फोक टेल आहे, एतिरो प्लूरलिज़म जे मायने जे लाइ आहे, एतिरो फ्रेंडली आहे in the world where in your dialogue it's not about असांजी सॼी कन्वर्सेशन में कोई हिंदू, मुस्लिम, पाकिस्तान, इंडिया कुछ न निकतो, बिकॉज़ ज़रूरत ही ना है, because it's the language and the culture it holds is just very powerful and beyond all of this. So I'm very hopeful. I'm sure you're all very hopeful. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll conclude with a trailer of Still Standing, because there are many other dialogues which will unfold because of this film and because of the reasons why which this film has been made for all of us. Thank you very much for joining us. Bali Kriya.
Who is a Sindhi? This is a question I ask myself. In my dreams, the answer is always anyone who wants to be.
Mohenjo-daro is the largest Bronze Age urban settlement in the world.
Anyone who loves Sindh and understands the principle that nothing will divide us, not even religion.
इहो सॼो मुंहिंजी नज़र में जेको बि सफ़र आहे असां रूह जो सफ़र कयो आहे
जहिड़ी कंहिंसां मरी हुई आहे हुई इहो मुंहिंजी हिकिड़ी कम जॾहिं जेको चरी थी पई हलां.
It's a place that I've seen only in my dreams, and I would love to touch the soil of the Sindh.
The attacker appeared to have targeted the women's wing of the shrine, and around
The Hindu is as much my brother. The Sikh is as much my brother as the Muslim. Because we are children of the same land, of the same river, of the same earth.
If you want to know who you are, you have to go back to the history of your ancestors.
I